Hello and welcome to the Magpie and Bunny podcast, the podcast where we talk about all of the things that we just can't justify talking about anywhere else. I mean, we joke. I said I should stop using the "I'll edit that out" joke, but I don't know. That's kind of perfect. I'm leaving that in. I'm sorry. I meant to say I'll edit it out.
It's a great start. Keep going.
Oh, we're
Keep
doing
going.
great so far.
Keep going.
I am crawling in my skin. These wounds they will not heal. Fear is how I fall, confusing what is real. I am Bubbles. She, her.
And I am the grayest movie I think I've ever watched in my life, and that includes black and white films. I'm Belle, and my pronouns are she, her.
You always try so hard to make your introduction, relevant to whatever we're talking about. Why do you do this?
Should I not?
No, you should do it.
I mean, because whatever we're talking about is on my mind, so I just that's just where my brain is at.
Well, that's maybe a better idea as far as branding goes than whatever the fuck I'm doing. Remember when I said I was going to try to not curse on this show? I'm doing excellent. I'm doing great. Speaking of this show, this week we're talking about the 2008 movie Twilight. And if we have time, I might talk a little bit about the sequel.
Of which there are apparently 100.
Belle didn't get a chance to watch that, so we're going to have to put our main focus on the first one. I get to throw you under the bus right away, and I think that's pretty great.
I mean, I just watched the first movie literally an hour ago.
All right, so Twilight so the Twilight book series so the first book in the series was released in 2005, written by the author Stephanie Meyer. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce her last name, if I'm being honest. The books were a big hit. Every teenage girl and middle-aged woman loved them.
Correct. I remember reading the first book when I was in middle school.
I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed them too. And then 3 years later, well, actually, you know what? The movie actually started production almost the same year the book came out and was a big hit. They were being developed by Paramount. Paramount kind of got them stuck in development hell for 3 years until eventually the rights were bought by Summit Entertainment, who had just gone to multi-platform production, distributing, and all that jazz. And so they jumped on the chance to make a movie for Twilight, because Twilight was a big deal. And then eventually, 3 years later, in the year 2008, they finally got the first movie released, directed by Christine Hardwick, I believe her name is. Let me double check that name. Catherine Hardwick. My bad. So tell me, Belle, what are some of your experiences with Twilight before we started doing it for this podcast, before we started watching the movie?
I read the first book, the first Twilight book, back in middle school? Maybe high school. I was in school, and I read the first one, and then I watched the movie, the first movie that we're talking about now. And then I didn't bother with any of the sequels, and I moved on with my life. I mean, and then you asked me to watch the movie again, and some parts of it I remembered, and some parts of it I really didn't.
Oh yes, this movie's wild. So I mean, this movie got a reputation. Everyone had an opinion about Twilight. People
loved shitting on this series, and I guess I'm kind of throwing my opinion out early, but I just think it was kind of boring more than anything. Maybe the sequels get far worse. I don't know, but everybody hated this movie.
Well, that was because it was made for teenage girls, and people hate everything made for teenage girls.
I guess. Do you remember when Hotel Transylvania came out? I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Hotel Transylvania came out, and there was a quick scene where they were making fun of how cheesy Twilight was. And I remember every film critic, because I was big into the film critics back then, were super praising how funny it was that they were joking about Twilight and how cheesy it was. And that's all I remember hearing about.
Yeah, I remember that. Everyone's like, oh, it's an Adam Sandler movie, but it's okay because they make fun of Twilight once, and it's not even a clever joke or anything. It's literally just
it's
Adam
just a
Sandler
cheap
walks into a theater and says, "Oh God, that's no, not he." He he sees someone watching on a plane or something. I don't even
Yeah,
remember.
no, they're on a plane, and he's like, "Is this what people think vampires are?" or something like that. And it's like a 2-second joke, and like
I
that's
mean,
all I'd remember hearing about. And I'm like, why are we talking about that with these movies? And it's like, well, we're not here to talk about Hotel Transylvania. That'll be another thing because they're coming out with a fourth movie. What?
yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, Hotel Transylvania came out in 2012. That was the same year as the final movie was coming out. I guess
That sounds
Twilight was,
right. I
but
mean,
yeah,
relevant
so
enough because you still had those other like what were they called? Not the scary movies, but like the other ones, like
I
epic
mean,
movie and disaster movie and all that crap.
I know what you're talking about. The movie Vampires Sucks is probably the one that you're referring to. It was
Yes,
made by the
yeah,
same
that's
people
it.
who made all the scary movies and everything else. So, same thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm thinking of.
But yeah, so I read these books in middle school. I started watching the movies, but honestly, the peer pressure kind of got to me, and I just sort of gave up Twilight and stepped away from it. And so I only ever saw the first two movies as they were coming out. But then, kind of like as I got older, and as people sort of laid off of the movies, and some people eventually started coming out and saying, "Oh, actually, they're like not the crimes against humanity that everyone wanted to call them out for back when they were coming out." And there's been a lot of healthier discourse about the Twilight movies over the past couple of years, and so
Yeah,
that's
well, because I feel like it's gotten to the point where the initial like hatred and everybody being very over the top and exaggerating everything that's died down, and now you've got people who are like, "Hey, I watched this movie when I was like 10, and I still have this like nostalgic attachment to it." Like
literally me.
it happens. It happens all the time. Like I remember when people back in like the year 2000, 2001, people complained about Ed, Ed and Eddie and saying it was the downfall of Cartoon Network. And now it's like hailed as this nostalgic masterpiece that, we all watched as kids. Like it happens all the time. Like there have been defenders of the freaking live action Cat in the Hat movie of all things. Like time is usually kind to these kind of media.
Yeah, I feel like there's something kind of interesting to be said about Twilight, though, because, like, I mean, it's the horror genre as told for women instead of for men. And I mean, like, vampire romance novels have been a thing since forever. Like, Anne Rice is, like, an author who exists.
Yeah, I was gonna say Interview with a Vampire kind of shit, and Buffy, obviously Buffy before this.
So, yeah, like, women's horror has been a thing for a while. Like, Anne Rice and Buffy, that has been a thing. But nothing has been quite as mainstream as, like, Twilight. Twilight was a huge deal. Twilight was everywhere. Twilight wasn't just on bookshelves. Twilight wasn't just, like, a niche TV show with a niche audience. It was everywhere. You saw trailers for it everywhere. You saw the books getting re-released and everything like that. Everyone was talking about Twilight, and everyone had an opinion about Twilight. It was, I don't know, maybe as culturally relevant as Titanic. Another, like, huge deal. Everyone was watching it, and a bunch of people hated it because it was made for teenage girls. And again, something that people have been fine with over time.
Yeah, I feel like you might be doing a little bit of a disservice to how popular other romantic vampire stories have been, but I think part of what made Twilight such a hit and both good and bad criticisms is that it came out right when the internet was in its huge boom. Like the books came out, like the first book at least came out like 1 year before YouTube launched. And by 2008 there were like people like I remember like what were they called, the Channel Awesome people, like they were in full swing when Twilight was a thing, and
Yes.
they perpetuated a lot of the angry movie reviewers, if you remember that craze. Like they loved tearing apart Twilight because it's this cheesy vampire movie made for 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it was an easy target. Like,
Easy targets. Yeah.
it's not really made for everyone's, and the people who might be a little bit more used to seeing stuff that was made for them in the spotlight would kind of come at this and say, well, I mean, I don't like it, it must be stupid. And people, like, if we're being honest, I think some of the Channel Awesome people are a little, I think the best term I've heard to describe them is uncurious or non-curious or anything to that effect. Not very interested in
Assholes, you can say it.
yes, close-minded. But let's just describe the people from Channel Awesome as maybe a little close-minded when it comes to certain things. And I feel like that was a lot of the attitude towards the Twilight movies in general. Either you liked them and you enjoyed them in some way, shape, or form, or you hated them. I'm a little upset that I let that whole vitriol kind of get to me and stop me from enjoying something that I really liked when I was young. And, like, being my own experiences as a teenager were kind of complicated because, I mean, like, I'm a trans person, so essentially being a teenage girl, but like not being able to experience anything as a teenage girl kind of made things extra complicated. So, there was that extra pressure, and I kind of felt like I had to leave that kind of stuff behind. So it's felt really good to come back later and revisit this and say, you know what? Fuck it, whatever. I enjoy this thing, and I'm not sorry about that. This movie came out the year after the first Transformers movie did, and I feel like that's the perfect parallel. Movies are like trash made for teenage boys that came out the same year as trash made for teenage girls. And I mean, like, if those movies can get 5 sequels and a spin-off and make billions of dollars and people can enjoy them and say, you know what, fine, if you enjoy them, okay, they're just not for me, then I feel like I can say, you know what, whatever, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I will enjoy Twilight, and this is my thing. I'm gonna die on this hill.
I mean, like, and good on you for that. Because I know those Transformers movies did also get quite a bit of hate as they were coming out, but it was nowhere near the hate that Twilight got. Just like, and that's purely because Twilight is aimed at a predominantly female audience, and people like really hate women and things made for women. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes, I think we're allowed to say that, because in this day and age, if you're still talking about Twilight and you're not dunking on it, I feel like everyone who's not going to be on board with us saying that people aren't super kind to things made for women, or frankly to women in general, they're probably not listening by now, so we're okay.
Well, good. We don't want them listening anyway. We support women in this house.
This is the Respecting Women podcast.
Like, and media made for women. You're talking to the only person who was excited when they were rebooting Popples.
Tell me what that is later. I think we do need to cover more weird stuff, because, like...
That sounds fun.
I kept saying, let's cover, like, weird, obscure stuff.
If you want weird stuff, I got you.
You brought some weird stuff to the table. You've got us watching, like, a Garbage Pail Kids cartoon, and I think, like, the second thing that I suggested for this show was Kingdom Hearts, which, very obscure. Not a lot of people know what it is. You actually have to have a very high IQ. I'm not making that joke either. Mm-hmm. I feel like you have to have a high IQ to enjoy this thing joke is the joke that everyone makes when they want to seem like they're making fun of pretentious people, but they're actually super pretentious themselves. I don't know. Whatever. We're talking about Twilight right now. You do not need a high IQ to like Twilight. Twilight is for everyone who does not give a shit.
I can't tell if that's for or against the point we're making.
I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm saying it doesn't need to be good because I love it anyways.
Do we want to actually
we're like 20 minutes
the
in.
plot
we're good. Okay, yeah, okay.
Of
so
the movie?
If anyone doesn't know what
just like, it's not a hard movie to describe. It's got like 2 plot
so
points.
For anyone who doesn't know what Twilight is, in the year of our Lord 2021, it's about a young woman named Bella Swan, name shortened to Belle. She moves from Phoenix, Arizona to go live with her dad in Forks, Washington. And when she's there, she's dealing with small town ennui. And so while she's living in this small town, she meets the Cullen family, which is a family of pale people with who are super antisocial, except she meets this one kid, Edward Cullen, who is very mysterious and seems to have a thing for her, maybe kind of hates her. It's the kind of sexual tension that's made for people who aren't ready for sexual tension yet. And so as she gets to know this mysterious, edgy boy, she realizes he might have these dark secrets or whatever, and eventually finds out that he is a vampire, which, the scene where I feel like she has this discovery that he's a vampire 5 times throughout the movie.
She seems real close to cracking this case. She's on Google 3 different times, and it's after the first time, right? But it takes her until the hour mark in this movie, and then they have the scene everybody knows about where they're in the forest, and goes in a circle and the acting's really stilted and the cameraman's drunk and it's a mess.
Oh my goodness, the camera work in this movie is a fucking wild ride. It is an adventure.
I hate it. I hate the directing. I hate the staging, the cinematography, all the camera work. It's absolutely terrible. The color correcting. Why is this movie blue? Like, I get that they're in Washington and like it's cloudy and rainy all the time, so the vampires don't have to go out in the sun. But your movie looks bad. It just looks gross watching it.
You know, this whole movie is like two extremes. Like, it feels like everyone who was working on this movie was either trying to put everything into it and just like go hog wild, like maybe just trying to get the camera to do whatever they can make it do instead of holding it still and just filming a shot like someone who just holds a camera still. And like there's some actors or like whoever was doing the lighting who just said, whatever, it's the Twilight movie, just like get it done, sign me my paycheck, and let's move on. And I feel like, yeah, I think honestly
Like,
that's sort of some of my favorite things
yeah.
about the movie. I feel like that's what makes the cheese, is that it's just so all over the place. It's so up and down. Like, some people are going out, some people are going wild, some people who don't know what they're doing are trying to give it their all, and some people who just don't want to be there are just kind of phoning it in.
It's definitely all over the place, and I feel like I'm not casting blame on anybody, obviously, but it just made, because like if the movie didn't have all of the little like Twilight isms that we've come to expect from it now, it would just kind of be boring.
Yes, the fact that it's so like the people who are trying and who are giving it their all, I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that. I respect that. I'm getting dizzy from everything that you're doing with the camera right now, but I respect that you're giving your I'm suppressed. I'm glad you're giving it your go. I'm glad you're giving it your all. But like all these kids who are playing all the high school kids,
I'm
yes.
I'm glad you just learned what a Dutch angle is. You're doing great.
And like some of the teenagers, it's like I don't actually know if that's. Oh, you know what? Actually, I feel like the teenage dialogue was actually pretty solid in this movie. And at the very least, I think that the 20-year-olds playing high schoolers weren't anywhere near as bad as like a couple years earlier when all high schoolers were all played by like 30 and 40-year-olds.
What do you mean? John Travolta's absolutely in high school.
Yeah, you know, I will give them credit though. I think the teenagers in this movie at least sound like they could possibly be teenagers. I'll give them that. At least as far as I remember being a teenager.
I mean, no teenagers I ever knew, but you know, maybe I'm special. I didn't grow up in Forks, Washington.
Yes, I'm 25. I'm about as old as you can possibly get. I don't know what the kids are doing these days. That's why we're talking about Twilight instead of the TikToks and the Fortnites.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was, and now what it was isn't it. And what is it is new and scary to me.
Bella's trying to flex that she's older than me by quoting The Simpsons. Nothing says you're out of the loop like quoting Simpsons, and I love you for that.
90% of me talking to my friends is quoting The Simpsons, which means I'm ancient.
I think it's funny because I think you're only like a couple years of age different. I think your age is only like a couple years off from mine.
Yeah, we're pretty close in age. But for some reason, I just feel so much older.
It's because apparently all the TV you like to watch comes from the 80s.
Look, we didn't have cable until a certain point, and I just had old VHSs.
Oh, that's fair, that's fair.
And that's how I became obsessed with like old Looney Tunes and like Casper the Friendly Ghost and like Of Iwerks cartoons and like because we had all those things on VHSs and I would
before we started filming this episode, we were talking to someone who we were talking about potentially having on as a guest in a future episode, and we were like, oh, you know, like we're pretty good at staying to the script. We don't really go on a whole lot of tangents. I feel like we're not talking about the plot of Twilight right now. I feel like we lied to this other person.
Oh, no, we were talking about Twilight. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, we lied.
I mean, you're talking about Casper the Friendly Ghost. You're close enough. If we're going to cover something Casper...
Can we keep talking about Casper the Friendly Ghost? Can we do an episode on Casper the Friendly Ghost?
If we're going to cover Casper the Friendly Ghost, it has to be the movie with Hilary Duff in it.
Casper Meets Wendy? You know I'm really excited for that, right?
That sounds like something you'd be excited for.
I'm super excited.
Welcome to the Twilight episode. The episode where we talk about all of the shows that Belle would rather be recording instead.
This episode is now about Casper meets Wendy, the good little witch, played by Hilary Duff, which was a made-for-TV movie that came out in 1997 and was originally planned to be a sequel to the 1995 film
Welcome to Casper, the friendly
live-action Casper
podcast.
film starring Christina Ricci. We can also talk about the spooktacular new adventures of Casper, which acted more as a sequel to that 1995 movie, even having the Harveys in it. The Harveys, by the way, named after Harvey Comics, which Casper was published by. I'm going to stop talking about Casper now because I will just keep going, and I've realized that. Cut all this out. All this can go.
So yeah, there's a little after there's a little exchange where, you know, she says it out loud. She says, "Oh, okay, you're a vampire." Edward just like picks her up and throws her on her back and just goes for a jog because he's just so angry about like being outed as a vampire, I guess. I don't know, but
That scene is so wild, okay? That's the worst looking
runs
scene.
her up to the top of the mountain past the cloud lines so he can show her what happens when he steps out into the sunlight. And he shows her the sparkle effect, which whoever did the VFX on the sparkle effect kind of feels like someone who fell asleep on the job.
Looks like he just has a really bad tan.
Felt like I was just looking at a lens flare. I couldn't tell that it was actually supposed to be sparkling, but oh well. In the sequel, in New Moon, the second one, the effect looks a lot better, which is for the best because there's a couple more plot points that actually circle around the fact that vampires sparkle. I appreciate how important
I'll believe you.
is.
Because I feel like the sparkle effect is the worst effect in the whole movie. But most of the effects look pretty bad. I don't like it whenever like Edward has to like move in super speed, and it looks very bad when they just kind of awkwardly speed up. Okay, now. I don't know why hanging up and coming back in muted my microphone.
The movie takes a while to get to the point where they're actually talking about how much, about him being a vampire and actually talking about what that means and what his whole vampire situation is. And, I mean, I get why that will make the movie feel like kind of slow, but, I mean, like, the whole point of the movie is to give Bella someone to crush on, and the whole making sure that there's like a mystery around him is supposed to be like the big draw for him. So like, sure, I get it.
I almost don't get it.
Okay, well, I mean, like, one of the big criticisms about this movie, which is kind of fair, is that Bella doesn't seem like she has a whole lot of agency in any of the movies, and she feels like she's more just reacting to things. But I will say, at the very least, the movies are all about what she wants. And it uses a big chunk of the movie to establish and set up how Edward is someone who she would want and actually lets her crush on him. And it's about her feelings and what she is feeling. And I think that's kind of cool and nifty. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like there aren't a lot of points where it's like she doesn't have a lot of agency, but I do think credit where credit is due. It's not just like every other. It's not like a whole bunch of other movies where just male lead and female lead have to crush on each other because it's just how that works. But oh well, it does take a while to actually get to the point where we're talking about vampires and getting to see all the really bad, cheesy special effects where he's like running around and tearing things apart. I don't know. The cheesy special effects are kind of fun though.
Yeah, I mean, as far as her agency goes, the only thing she really does on her own is find out that he's a vampire. Because again, we see her on Google like 16 times trying to piece everything together. But everything else in the movie, she's just kind of doing what other people tell her to do. Like, her mom says go live with your dad because she wants to go on a road trip or something, and she goes okay, and then she gets to school
and then she's kind of awful.
Like, her dad is, she's so mean to her dad, and her dad's actually pretty chill. And like, I mean, yeah, he's a weird, awkward white man, but like, he still obviously seems to care about his daughter and wants to do things with her, and like, they go out to eat at the diner all the time, and
yeah, like he's
like, he tries to make sure he's she's okay constantly. She ends up in the hospital at least twice in the movie, and he's like freaking out both times.
Yeah, so like as much as the movie kind of portrays him as like a bit of a deadbeat or whatever, like there's really nothing like I don't know, deadbeat's even too strong a word. Like he's just like
He's not
uncool.
really I mean, he's a cop, but
And
other
like
than
that's not
that, he
like a
seems fine.
yeah, like she blows him off like any teenager with an uncool dad would, but like I don't know, like I I watched this and like he's clearly putting in effort to like try and reconnect with his daughter who has been like living with the other parent and with the step parent for so long. And I feel like she spends a lot of the movie being a jerk to him. Later in the movie, closer to the we're gonna come back to this later because later in the movie she's just
Oh
an
no,
extra big jerk to him.
no, the end of the movie, she is so mean to him at the end of this movie. And I'm like, what did the dad do? I mean, like, yeah, he's probably a drunk. He's like drinking beer in every scene, but like, he's never mean to her. I don't think he ever says anything bad. He seems to have her interest at heart. Like, she's like, whatever, dad, I gotta leave. And he just like, okay. She has to like emotionally scar her father to leave because he's just super protective of her and be like,
We'll come back to
hey,
this later.
oh yeah, we're not there
About
yet, but like
yeah, we'll come back.
I I know.
But yeah, so at the point she's at right now, the only person she's interested in are the cool vampires. And like, she goes to meet them at their house and they all try to
Are they cool though? Are they?
they're edgy. And that's cool to a teenage girl who loves
Cuz like they're not really that interesting. Maybe they get interesting in the sequels. Cause like the most, I mean, like Edward's the one we spend the most time with, but Edward's kind of a fucking creep.
I love Jasper in these movies. He looks like he's constantly like swallowed something that he is like alive and like he's struggling to like swallow it.
Oh no, I was trying to think of what he reminded me of because his expression, where he just like always looks like he's like in pain and shock at the same time. It reminds me of, and this is going to be a pull that you probably don't know about. He looks like Caesar the Somnambulist from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is an old German expressionism film, and like he's got the same like expression, and he's got the pale face and like the pained eyes. Like it's the same deal. I swear to God.
Facial expressions throughout the whole movie are a treasure. The actor who played
And then I don't. Do they all have superpowers?
most of them do. You were like basically live tweeting.
Because they introduce the only we only see two of them with superpowers. I called them the X-Men because they all seem to have powers.
Yes, Emmett is a little bit stronger than everyone else, but that's just because they got the most muscular dude to play him. So I don't know. Well, I mean, he was stronger in the books too, but like some of the vampires are a little bit faster than other vampires. Some of them are a little bit stronger than other vampires. And then some of them just have like special abilities. Like Alice can see the future.
Yeah, but like being slightly stronger or slightly faster isn't like a superpower. Like regular humans are like that.
Yeah, and like some of these people just have like abilities. Like Alice can see the future. Edward, mind reading. Jasper has the ability to control people's moods, but they don't really do anything with that in this movie. But like one of the first things that happen in the sequel in New Moon is like it's Bella's birthday, and so she doesn't want anybody to get her presents. But then like Alice comes and gives her a present since she can see the future. She's like, "Oh, I already saw you open it, and you love it. I can't wait to see how you like it." And so then to convince her to accept the gift, like Jasper makes her excited about the present, and she doesn't realize it until after she's already accepted it. It's a cute scene. It's a little weird to think about like someone who's able to like fuck with your emotions like
I
that, but oh well, it looked cute in the movie.
Yeah, that's literally emotionally manipulative, but that's fine.
So throughout this movie, like while she's getting into like while she's interested in Edward, she's also every now and then meeting with her childhood friend Jacob, who is from a nearby Native American reservation. Anyone who's familiar with the books knows that he ends up being another love interest later. I mean, if we're going to talk about the love interest in the movie, then I have to ask you, Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Fuck if I know. I mean, like, Jacob doesn't do anything in this movie except for hate Edward, and Edward's kind of creepy, I'm not gonna lie, with the whole, like, I like watching you while you sleep. I'm like, back off.
Yeah, that was pretty creepy. Not gonna lie, but I mean,
And, like, he literally admits to stalking her early on in the movie. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna come back from this.
yes, we need to unpack why that's such a thing, but we're also not going to unpack why that's such a thing.
And no, and I mean, like, if somebody's into it, you're into it. Like, I'm not.
You're not gonna marsh anyone's mellow.
I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, it's like a romantic fantasy, and it's like if you're into it, you're into it. I'm just like the I watch you while you sleep isn't my thing.
Yeah, the whole I watch you while you sleep thing, I feel like I get what that was going for. That was supposed to be like adding to the danger and the mystique or whatever. And like, you know, if that's what it's there for, that's what it's there for.
It's a power thing. It's like, this dangerous monster can sneak into your room and kill you, but he doesn't. He just wants to make out with you. Like, I get it, but at the same time, not really my thing.
Another big thing about the Twilight movies was the whole Team Edward versus Team Jacob debate. And as a couple of polyamorous people, like that feels like a really weird question.
Yeah, ¿por qué no los dos?
Yeah, I'm like I get it. That's not everyone's usual like point that they come in and approach these things from. Like, it's more common for someone to be monogamous, but like as a polyamorous person who's like, okay, I mean like if you have a conversation.
That's why I've always had a problem with love triangles. Like, even as a young person, I just never understood them. Part of that's because I just don't understand
Yeah, like we've complained.
human romance. I, I I am robot. Like, you have to speak to me like I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I don't.
Yeah, we've complained about this in our first episode in Dinotopia, but yeah, like I get love triangles feel like an easy way to build drama and tension or whatever, but like at the same time, like at least to us and well, okay, you know what? I feel like most of the people in all the places where I share these episodes, people know what polyamory is. If anyone doesn't, that essentially just means like you're open to dating more than one person at a time in a consensual manner. Like I might have like two girlfriends who both know that I'm dating someone else or something like that. Essentially, it just means that, like, in this scenario, if I were Bella and I was trying to decide, well, was I going to date Edward or was I going to date Jacob, I might just talk to them, have a conversation, see if they're both willing to have a relationship. But oh well.
I would choose neither of them and go for Susie Crabgrass. Because for any fans of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, the actress that plays Susie Crabgrass on that show is in this movie, and I didn't know that, and I kind of got excited when I saw that she was in this movie.
Wait, who does she play?
She is the one photographer student
Angela.
with the glasses.
Angela, the one who dates Eric.
Sure. You could tell me any name, and I'd be like, yeah. Yeah, I know all of their names.
I have all the names of all the characters from the movie memorized, at least. Oh my goodness.
There's white kid, other white kid, the one Asian kid, the one black kid, Anna Kendrick, and that's it.
I should be ashamed that I know all of these characters' names, but I'm not. But yeah, so as I was saying earlier, like this, as much as this whole series is like aggressively heterosexual, aggressively monogamous. Cough. That's part of the cheese. Cough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and like I get it. Like, this whole movie, I understand, right? Like, I think it's mostly a boring movie, but it's like the appeal is there, right? Like, I understand the monster romance genre. It's just they just don't do that much interesting with it. It's just kind of boring and basic.
It is boring and basic, but this is one of those moments where I'm gonna let myself be basic in peace because I love it.
You're allowed to love it. Like I'm just,
Thank you for
it's
allowing me to
fine.
love it.
I don't hate it. I don't think it. I don't think it deserved any of the hate it got. It's certainly not that bad.
Well, yeah, sure. The hate was the hate, and I do feel like anybody who watches it now and like so long after like it's gotten as much hate as it's gotten can at least watch it and can at least see like that there is the appeal. Like I mean, like I feel like you just said this like just now. Like you can see that the appeal is there, even if it's not your thing. You can see, okay, yeah, I get it, and I see where it's coming from.
Yeah, like it's fine, and I feel like that's the worst part because I don't really have that much to say about that. Because like I can like the worst part for me was that the movie is just gray and ugly, but you like the acting's kind of stilted and the plot's a little bit bleh, but like eh, you know. I can complain about how I think they wanted to set up a mystery, and I really don't understand it. Because like part of it is like, oh, what's up with Edward? He's so strange, but that kind of doesn't. It just builds up to like we're vampires, and then nothing, and then they kind of have this little like murder mystery thing with like an animal's killing people, but it's actually vampires. And I think we're meant to think it's like Edward or his family, but it's actually these other vampires. But then it ends up just being one of the other vampires who's like extra
Oh well.
bad. And like, I don't. Was this all supposed to be a mystery? Because I didn't get anything out of this.
So I think the biggest mystery is just what's going on with Edward Cullen, and I mean, that's a thing, but like I feel like the movies were like advertised around being like a vampire romance, so everyone went into this movie knowing that Edward was a vampire. So it did take a while where it was like, what's going on with Edward, and it kept alluding to vampires like the entire time, like when Bella talks to Jake about like the old legend about why the Cullens can't come on to the reservation. Like she starts doing all this research with the book that she gets from town, and like she's reading essentially about vampires, and like everyone's looking at them like, yeah, it's vampires. Like, okay, vampires, 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 and it still takes like another like 20-30 minutes before she actually just says, okay, you're a vampire. Show me the vampire stuff that you do.
Yeah. They're trying to hide it by calling him like they call him the cold one, and I made fun of this when I was texting you about the movie when I was watching it. I'm like, that sounds like a beer. That doesn't sound like he's a monster.
I made a remark that in the following couple of movies, Jake and the rest of the werewolves like to crack open cold ones with the boys. But you know what?
It's terrible.
We've been talking about how boring this movie is for a while. But I think we're getting to what is probably the best part of the whole movie, and that is the baseball game.
This whole game is so weird and extra for no reason.
Oh, I loved it so much. The baseball it just gets so over the top during the baseball scene. Like there's a thunderstorm going on, and so the whole family goes to go play baseball out in the woods far away from town where no one can hear them. And so Edward says, "Oh, like we have to play during a thunderstorm, and as soon as we start playing, you'll see why." And it's because they all have vampire superpowers. When they hit the baseball, it's like super loud and sounds like a crack of thunder. So they play during a thunderstorm, so no one wonders why there's all these loud thunder noises coming from out in the woods. And it's just everyone's wearing baseball costumes. Emmett is wearing a backwards cap because of course he is. Why wouldn't he?
It's not even backwards. It's like half on the side and almost to the back, but not quite.
Oh, you're right. It's even cornier. I remember now. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I made note of that because he looked like an ass.
Oh my goodness. Yes. He looked like such a jackass, and I love him for that. Oh
And
my
like
goodness. Oh,
it looked very dumb, and everybody's wearing this like mishmash baseball outfits, and the super speed effects that I think look really really ugly. They're in full force in this scene because they got to run around and they just kind of speed up some footage and awkwardly do some motion blurs and shit. Uh, I didn't.
yes. The camera shots. They are moving everywhere. They will not stand still. They will not.
And like it's no, every little thing is so freaking like the camera's going crazy and it's like zooming in and out and I'm like I know who's here. I know who's I don't need to see all this. And it's like even just like
Some of the
up to the
movement is so
way
over the
that
top, too.
the
Like,
future sight girl the way the future sight girl pitches her baseball is so
and
fucking
she does it like
extra.
every time. Oh my goodness. It's like she's trying to dance and pitch at the
Every
same time.
single time she like winds it up and does a little dance and does her little ballet pose, sticks her leg out and then throw it. I'm like, what are you doing?
And the dad is wearing a scarf while he's playing. Because why wouldn't he be wearing a scarf?
Right?
Oh my god, that was my favorite part of the whole movie. It's just, oh my goodness.
It's so it's I mean I'm glad you enjoy.
I'm enjoying it right now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean like again, it's extra as fuck for no reason, but I didn't really get a reaction out of me, you know? There were 2 points in this movie that actually made me chuckle.
Okay, well, you had to tell us what both of those points in the movie are.
And yeah, no, the first was Bella comes over to Edward's house for the first time, and the vampires are trying to be like super nice and hospitable and like making dinner for her. The vampires don't eat because they're like immortal monsters, so they don't eat whatever. And they're being nice and making her dinner, and she comes in and is like, "Oh, I already ate." And then the second she goes, "Oh, I already ate," the one vampire just smashes a bowl in anger. And the second one that made me laugh
Okay, wait,
was
hold on. Hold on. I want to tell you a fun fact.
what?
So during that scene where Rosalie, the vampire lady, breaks the glass bowl in her hand, they did a couple of takes of that. And the first time they did it, like, apparently they didn't think to do, like, safe glass or anything like that because she cut up her hands. And that's why she's wearing gloves in that scene. Because for all the other takes, her hands were all cut up from the first bowl that she broke. So they had to, like...
They used a real bowl?
Yes!
Why would you not use breakaway glass?
I have no idea.
What the fuck, Twilight filmmakers?
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's a good time. And also, when at this scene when they're in the house, that's when you realize that everyone's wearing like a logo somewhere on their body. Like all of the guys, like Edward and Emmett, wear like these large leather wristbands that have like the Cullen family crest on them, and then like all the other women have like necklaces or other pieces of jewelry that have it. And I'm like, is that not the most conspicuous thing? Not super important, I'm sure.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, not super important. I'm sure they just wanted to be able to sell something at Hot Topic, and a leather wristband with the Cullen family crest on it is easy enough to sell.
I'm sure I would have bought it.
But what was the second thing that made you laugh?
Oh, the second thing that made me laugh was when it's at Bella's house and she's like, "Dad, Edward wants to meet you." And the dad is just like really not having any of this shit. And he's like, "Okay." Then he cocks a shotgun and he goes, "Bring him in." And Bella's like, "Oh my god, just be nice." And like that made me laugh.
Yeah, 'twas a thing. But yeah,
That was funny. But that was it. Those were the only two things, I think. And it was like it was the timing because it was so fast. Both of those jokes were just like so quick. In a movie that is mostly really slow. Why was this movie 2 hours long?
I don't know, but oh lord, was I having fun with that. But after the baseball scene, the other vampires show up. And I don't necessarily know what was going on with these vampires. It was just, I guess it was a couple of CW models that they had who were running around killing people, and they were ready. They heard the baseball coming, so they come over and they meet all the other vampires. But because Bella's there and she's a human, they all want to eat her. And one of them is a special vampire. He's a tracker, and so he really enjoys hunting things down and chasing things. So because there's all these other vampires telling him, no, you can't eat this human, that like challenges him. And now he's super excited to chase down this human. And so that's like the last 30 minutes of the movie is them trying to protect Bella from this vampire.
Yeah, with like no build-up, I should add. This guy becomes the villain of the movie.
Well, it's because this movie wasn't really about having a villain. I mean, it was. I guess they just decided in the last 30 minutes that they needed an extra conflict, and it felt like a conflict that needed its own movie. But oh well. A fun fact though, when they show up, like the camera pans down and shows you that they're all barefoot for some reason. I don't remember why them being barefoot was supposed to be important, but they have red contact lenses in their eye, and their feet are covered by slippers that's supposed to make it look like they're barefoot, so they don't actually have to walk around being barefoot. And both of those costume pieces were created by the director by herself. Like she designed the slippers to look like bare feet herself. She designed the contacts that look like red eyes herself, apparently, according to the IMDb trivia page.
Well, good for her. List me off some more IMDb trivia.
Well, so the IMDb trivia page really loves the fact that Robert Pattinson is going to be playing Batman next year. Like, they comment, like, oh, you know, vampires usually turn into bats. And though the vampires don't turn into bats in this movie, Robert Pattinson is going to be playing Batman, who is a bat, in the 2022. Who says 2022? In the 2022 Batman movie. Henry Cavill was going to play, well, okay. So Stephanie Meyer wanted Henry Cavill to play the role of Edward Cullen, but Robert Pattinson played him instead. Henry Cavill later went on to play Superman, and Robert Pattinson would later go on to play Batman. So that's cool.
Riveting.
That's also where I found out that Rosalie had to wear the gloves because she cut her hand. I say Rosalie, the actress who played Rosalie. I don't know her name. I only know the characters' names because that's where I'm at with this movie. But yeah, that was one of the IMDb trivia facts, that she had to wear those gloves because she cut her hands open on the glass bowl.
God, let's go back to dinosaur facts. This IMDb facts ain't giving us nothing.
Yes, what's a dinosaur fact? Give us a dinosaur fact. We forgot a dinosaur fact last episode. This has got to be a good one.
It's got to be a good one. Well, how about the fairly recent discovery that Spinosaurus, which we thought was mostly terrestrial, was discovered to have like fins on its tail, so it was at least partially aquatic in theory, at least. And there's also fun bits with its the nostrils of the Spinosaurus, which has nothing to do with the tail fin discovery. But the nostrils are actually very far up, like close to their eyes. I forget the word for it, and I apologize. And scientists think it's so the Spinosaurus can dip the front of its pretty long beak into the water, and with its nostrils above the water, and just wait for prey to swim by, and then it snaps it up. Spinosaurus is a really cool dinosaur for anybody who wants to research it. I really enjoy it. It's also one of the biggest creatures.
So there's a lot of physiological details on the dinosaur that implies that it was probably a lot more aquatic than people previously thought it was. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, we thought Spinosaurus was closer to like a Dimetrodon kind of thing, where it would like be mostly land based, but no, we're pretty sure at this point that it's lived in the water. Yeah.
Nice.
So I mean, it obviously had legs, so
That
likely amphibious, but you know, it's cool.
That is a cool dinosaur fact, and I dig it.
You dig it, like
Like
dinosaur bones.
Like a paleontologist, yes.
Yeah.
We should wrap this up, though, because we're like an hour and 15 minutes to our recording, and we haven't even finished the last bit of the movie yet.
But we have to make it 2 hours long to match this movie.
I'm going to bed in 20 minutes.
Oh God, no. We'll wrap it up. because we're at the end of the movie. They like
So yeah, at the end, like
the conflict
there's
finally
some
starts an
time
hour and a
where
half
like
into the
Bella's
movie,
on the
and
run.
the evil ponytail vampire is chasing after them, and they
Another fun
fight
fact.
him. And
Another fun fact. The actor who plays James, the tracker vampire, was originally cast to play Emmett, but wanted to play the role of James, the evil vampire, instead. So that role got switched around, and someone else got cast to play Emmett. And so then there's a little bit
hmm,
of
he wanted out of this movie after the first one.
that guy trying to track down Bella and everyone else, and they managed to stay away from him. Well, so they managed to like trick him by giving some of Bella's clothes to some of the other vampires, and so then they sort of lead him away. But eventually, when he figures that out, he goes
Why did they have to dress like her, by the way?
because her clothes have her scent on them, so he's tracking her scent.
Uh-huh. Why don't they just carry her clothes around?
They can probably run faster if they're not carrying things.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, like if you're carrying something in your arms,
Edward was going real fast and had a whole ass human on his back.
and yet he was able to go faster when she clung onto his back like a little spider monkey. Remember?
Like a spider monkey,
Like a
yes.
spider monkey.
Calls her spider monkey, which I think was supposed to be his sexy talk.
So yeah, they lead him away, but then as soon as he realizes he's been tricked, he manages to find out where Bella's mother is. And so he goes back to Phoenix, Arizona, which also happens to be where Bella's hiding. But that's more of a coincidence. And so he goes to a ballet studio. It's just a room filled with mirrors and pretends to have Bella's mother hostage there because Bella's mother is still on her road trip. And so he manages to convince Bella to show up alone. And it takes a while for any of the other vampires to realize where she went or what's happening. And so that gives James, the evil vampire, time to attack Bella until Edward can show up. He manages to show up first because apparently he's supposed to be faster than everyone else. And then there's a fight scene where he gets his ass kicked a little bit, but you get to see more cheesy vampire fights and everything. And then all the other vampires show up.
And there is a scene in there where well, what's his name? James, like,
Mm-hmm. James is the evil vampire.
really
That's right.
brutally breaks Bella's leg. I didn't remember that, and I didn't expect that at all. And it's like this, like Kristen Stewart just lets out this awful scream that I'm like, no, you're selling it.
Yes.
Like you actually
It's
just
a
got
very
your leg
intense.
snapped.
It's the most intense. Well, I can say very intense. It's definitely the most intense scene in the entire movie. I can give it that much credit.
Yeah, I think it's the most gruesome part of the movie.
You also get to see people like rip him apart, like rip apart James, the evil vampire, and then they start a bonfire.
Yeah, they're real
Yeah, they
casual
mentioned it
about
a couple
that too.
times.
They're like, nope, we got to rip them apart. And we got to rip them apart, and we got to burn all the pieces. That's the only way to get rid of them. And I'm like, you got there real fast, yo.
Yes, they bring that up a couple of times during the last couple of minutes because you're like, oh shoot, we didn't establish how to actually kill a vampire. We're gonna have to kill one, and we'll just like into the last couple.
No, it was like 5 seconds after they met him. Edward's like, nope, we got to rip him apart and burn all of his body. And
And then right before they
I'm
do
just
it,
like, that's the plan, just immediately.
exactly, yes. And then right before they're right after they kick his butt at the very end of the movie, Emmett's like, okay, Emmett or Jasper or somebody is like, okay, yeah, we gotta rip them apart and burn the pieces. Like they're repeating that just in case you didn't catch it the first time, and just in case you didn't get that this is how you kill a vampire. But oh well.
Right.
You get to see Alex like
And they
jump
do
up
a thing at the end where like Bella gets, yeah, that was gruesome. But they do a thing where Bella gets bit, right? And she's like turning into a vampire.
oh my goodness.
And
Yes, the
then
scene
it's
where
like
Bella
the
gets bit
ultimate, like the test of
and then like
faith, because
laying
they've
on the
been
ground with the
building up
vampire venom
for
in
the
her and
movie
she's
that like Edward,
into a vampire.
it, like really wants to, yeah, and it's like Edward really wants to eat her for like the whole movie, and they've been like building it up. Like there was a scene where they were like making out in her bedroom or whatever, and Edward had to pull herself off of her because he wanted to kill her or something like that. It's a sexy monster romance. And then at the end, it's like the test of faith is like, I have to do this to save her. She's going to become an undead vampire, which spoilers, I think she ends up doing in a later movie anyway, but
It takes
whatever.
Bow's whole process to get there, but that doesn't happen in this
And
movie.
like, I'm sure. Um, but my point was, I'm praising the movie because I don't want this to sound
You
like
can
I'm
trash it.
trashing it. They actually set up a thing and had it somewhat try to pay off. Well, I just don't want to be like super like, oh, this movie's the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not. It's fine.
You don't have to like excuse yourself for making fun of the movie. Like, I'm making fun of it. I love it. It's okay. You can have fun with the parts that you like, the parts that you don't like.
I mean, I'll make fun of the movie. The movie's
We all understand that
stupid,
you're not criticizing
but
this movie
I
just to
liked
bash on
that.
it because you hate
Like, a lot
teenage
of the
girls.
lore
You're
isn't.
criticizing it because I made you watch it and now you have stuff to say about it.
I mean, yeah, like there's good part. Like I liked that it's Edward who has to like save her, quote unquote, without killing her, but he's like tempted to kill her because he's an evil monster or whatever. Like things like that are set up and pay off. Um, Most everything else that you think is set up is not paying off in
Yes, and the
any
scenes where
conceivable
she's on the
way. Maybe it
floor,
does in the
like,
sequels. I have
you
no idea.
when you're pausing a movie or something like that, you might pause in a bad frame and the character might have a weird facial expression. Every time the camera points at her when she's on the floor,
No.
it
Yeah, we got to talk about this.
yes, we do have to talk about this. But every time the camera points at her while she's at the floor, it looks like she's making the kind of face that someone would only make if you pause a movie at the wrong time. So of course I got a bunch of screen caps and I shared them all in the Discord. I'm like, y'all, you need to look at these faces because they were an adventure.
I just.
Not
I'm going to rag on the cinematographer again because, man, they don't know how to shoot faces in this
I
movie.
think this one was the director's fault.
Like, nobody. There is not a. Well, director then.
It,
There's not
I've
a
gone back
single
listening to her
flattering
this
shot of
entire time.
anybody in this movie.
There's not, and I love it for that.
And it's like they're like either way too close or at a weird angle or like half of the shots of Bella it looks like the meme when it's like you're playing your Switch and turn it off and you see your how your face looks. Like that's what Bella looks like in this movie.
Yes, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And it's like and these are not like these are attractive actors. They just like they're framed so terribly and everything is gray and the freaking cameraman won't stop spinning
Okay, so we were
around
pushing
and
this a little bit. This is going to be one of our long episodes. So let me see if I can push us through the last couple of bits, but in a little bit of a rapid fire session. Are you all right with that? Okay.
yeah, let's do it lightning round.
So after the whole fight scene and everything, and after Edward sucks out the venom from her arm without killing her, it's a big thing for him to do. She wakes up later in the hospital. The mom's there, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, I bet you don't even remember. Like you tripped and fell through a window when Edward and his dad were coming to try to get you when you left town after being a piece of garbage to your dad. Oh, do you even remember any of that?" She says, "Oh no, I guess that's how I broke my leg." And everyone just sort of rolls with that. And it gets to end with her going to prom.
Yeah, no. They all buy this story. I want to stop for just a second because the
Belle,
only
we are so over time right now.
the only people corroborating this story, I don't care. The person telling them this story is the boyfriend that Bella just pretended to have a fight with. And they're like, "Oh, she tripped and fell down the stairs." And her parents are like, "Yeah, that checks out, man who just had a fight with my daughter." Continue, I'm sorry.
And then they go to prom, which is something that's been set up for the whole rest of the movie. And Bella gets to wear a fancy dress. And, I mean, there's a lot of attention actually given to Bella's dress in this scene. But apparently that dress was only $20, and the suit that Edward Cullen is wearing in that scene was apparently the most expensive outfit from the entire movie, in the entire costuming department. But then the two of them go to prom. There's a brief scene where Jacob comes into prom and says, "Hey, my dad wants you to break up with him." Apparently, like, he's watching him for whatever reason. I mean, that's just a stinger setting up for the sequel. And then it ends with Bella saying, "You could have just let me turn into a vampire. I really want to be immortal. I want to live with you forever." Again, she's just sort of establishing what her goal is for the next couple of movies and sort of wrapping up what's going on here. One last thing that I really should have mentioned earlier, but I cannot record this podcast without mentioning it. But there is one scene where she's in the cafeteria, like way earlier in the movie, and she's like looking at fruit or whatever, and she drops an apple. And then it cuts over to someone like kicking it up in the air and grabbing it in their hands so that it looks like the apple in the hands on the cover of the book. And all of the movies try really hard in order to get like whatever the distinct image from the cover is at some point in the movie. Like in the New Moon movie, like there's a scene where like she has some bloody gauze that was used to clean up her body, and like it gets burned, and like as you're looking at the gauze being burned, it looks like the flower on the cover of the New Moon book. And they try so hard to get those on screen in cool ways, but again, it's just so cheesy and fun to watch, and that's fun. But we are almost an hour and a half into our recording. I can probably edit that down a bit, but we should really get into final thoughts now. Tell me, Belle, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, like my final thoughts is this movie was okay. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It had some neat things. I kind of I mean, it's bad, but it's not like bad, if you know what I mean. Like it's not like I'm not watching The Room here. It's not that. It's not that. It's just fine. I actually dig some of the lore in this movie. I like the little found family kind of thing where like the dad is like siring all of the vampires because he's a doctor, and when he like has no other choice
To make a
to heal a
family?
patient that's about to die, he will turn them into a vampire. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
that's a cool idea. I don't know if they're going to do anything with it. Probably not, but it's a cool idea. And like, there's little inklings of interest in here.
Yeah, that idea gets played.
But on the whole, I was bored through most of it. It's a very slow movie.
So in later movies, there is a comparison, because not everyone in his family was made that way. So there are some people who were not sired by Carlisle, by the dad, and they were turned into vampires in other ways and added to the family at later points, and that sort of creates some interesting tension. So if you're interested in that concept, then the movies do explore like what the difference is between someone who didn't have a choice to become a vampire and it was either become a vampire or die, and like what happened to people who were turned into vampires by other people who had more sinister intentions, and also comparing that to Bella, who just wants to be turned into a vampire because that is her goal and because that is what she wants. So if that's something you're interested in, you might be interested in checking out the other movies. All right then. So
I
my final
won't, but I will
thoughts.
keep that in
I'm
mind.
This movie is the most beautiful mess, and I enjoy it. That sounds so succinct. But this movie's all over the place. Like I said it earlier, like people are either trying really hard or not trying at all, and I feel like watching the movie there's just cheese everywhere, and it is delicious, over the top cheese, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like I say that so much on this podcast. Oh, it's so this thing, but I wouldn't have it any other way. But this is the pinnacle of that. I mean, like, most people will call a movie like this a guilty pleasure, but I refuse to feel guilty about it. I love the Twilight movie. I love the books. I love all the other Twilight movies. I mean, I let myself sort of fall out of enjoying these movies before I actually got to see the last couple of them. And like going back to watch them again and reminding myself how much fun I had just enjoying the books and the movies and all that makes me really excited to go look down all the other ones and watch them again myself. Like I had a really good time watching this, and I mean, even if you weren't as blown away as I was, I'm really glad you gave them a chance, Belle, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad you watched them.
I you sat through Garbage Pail Kids for me. I owe you at least a Twilight. And you know what? It was fine. It was absolutely fine. And don't feel ashamed, yo. Live your truth. So,
Yes, Mom, Dad, I'm a Twilight fan. So yeah, I think that's it for this week. Join us again in 2 weeks when we do our Pride special. We're going to be talking about the 2017 TV show Danger and Eggs. In the meantime, come join us on Discord. We love hanging out with people there. We're looking to hang out with more people on Discord. So if nothing else, just stop by, say hello. If you don't want to join us on Discord, then go ahead and leave us a comment here. Let us know how you're feeling. Leave us a like or a dislike, whatever you're in the mood for. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see our future episodes. Did I get everything, Belle? I mean, I gave the big YouTube clip, but I keep forgetting. Like we have a fairly significant number of listeners on a couple of other podcasting platforms as well. So if you want to listen to us on somewhere besides YouTube, there's a couple other places for you to check out. It's all the same content, though. We have the content on the podcasting platforms, content on YouTube, and you can hang out with us on Discord. That's what we're offering.
we're all over the place. So,
We're really not all over the place. We're on your preferred podcasting platform. We're on YouTube and we're on Discord, and that is it. And that is how.
I you know what? We're on a couple places, but we might be able to get to syndicated television if we get enough likes. So smash that like button, hit subscribe, check that bell if you want to get notifications. Oh, are we done? We've been doing this for a while.
Oh my god, yes, this is going to be our longest episode yet. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm also not sorry, though.
This is such a
Thank you so much for coming by, and
this
we will
shit's
see you.
movie length. Good night, everybody.
Yes, this is almost the length of a Twilight movie.